Good morning, everyone. My name is Pam Helene, Secretary to the Board, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the joint meeting of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee and the HR Committee for the Board of Regents, dated Friday, December 6, 2024, where we're going to hear our update on the sexual misconduct report. Before we begin that report, I'd like to introduce our Lori Lamb, our Director of Human Resources. Lori?
Thank you, Pam, and thank you for just this moment of privilege. I know we want to get on with the report as quick as possible, but I wanted to say a couple of things before we get there, which is, first, it's been my privilege to have had the opportunity to work with so many of you and to be of service to this system over the last 11 months. I want to make sure and introduce you to a couple of key individuals that you'll be connecting with on these key issues after my departure, which is today. First of all, Cameron Liston, he is on the line here with us. He is the new Chief Compliance Officer for the system. I think many of the regents may have had the opportunity to meet him yesterday, but I want to make sure that everybody is aware. This Title IX sexual misconduct non-discrimination area is now officially all reporting under Cameron's leadership. We're very lucky to have Cameron here. He brings a tremendous amount of expertise in all compliance areas, but also especially in the Title IX non-discrimination, equity, and civil rights areas. And so I couldn't be more happy with the future direction for the system in that regard. I also want to introduce you to Jennifer Person. She texted me and said she's having trouble getting things to work, but she's online. I want to, at least you'll know her by name if she can get her camera working by face as well. She will be the contact person going forward for all things that are HR related. And just wanted to make sure that people had that. You were, as a board, you are all in good hands with both of these people taking on these specific areas. We are here today to really talk about Title IX and sexual misconduct and hear an update on what is happening or what has happened over the past year in that area. I will say this Title IX work that we've done and the non-discrimination work that we've done over the last 11 months, frankly, has been one of my most proud accomplishments. It's very important work for the system. It's important for all of our faculty, staff, and students to make sure they have a safe and productive working and learning environment. This work matters. And so what you're about to hear today matters a lot so that the board is aware of what is happening on the campuses in this area. I want to say too that I couldn't have done any of this. I didn't do it alone. I did it with a whole tons of people. I was a conductor, not the doer, but I certainly couldn't have done it without Kim Pacelli. She's been an amazing partner in this work. She came to us at a time when the system office leadership in this space had essentially dissolved, and so there was nobody to take it over. So I was asked to take it over and obviously recognized the need for some very specific expertise in this area. And Kim has risen to that occasion in exemplary fashion. I truly want to thank her for the work that she's done in helping us get our interim policies, our interim procedures in place, in working with our campuses and working overall to help lift our overall game in this space so that we're better supporting all the campuses in this area, but more importantly, supporting our faculty, staff, and students. There's more work that needs to be done. Cameron will lead that work in an exemplary fashion going forward. But I know that, again, you'll be in great hands with the support you're having in this area. So I really just want to say again that it has really been my privilege to be of service to this system, and I wish you all the best in the future. And with that, I will turn it over to Kim for the report, for the annual report on what's going on in the Title IX and sexual misconduct area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori. We wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Well, can I start by also saying thank you, Lori? And I know I don't have the benefit of being an insider to the system, but I do have the benefit of having some expertise in terms of the vision and leadership that goes into sort of remaking a program like this. And Lori, you know, it would not be where it was were it not for your leadership and vision. And I would not have gotten us as far as I have without your support, particularly as an outsider. So let me dive in, and Cameron, who I know is on screen with us, I have invited to please chime in as we go, given that it's Cameron's first week. I have taken the laboring oar here of pulling this together, but I have no doubt that he will have some insights as well. So the purpose of this report, and I've taken a slight amount of liberty with it, and hopefully the regents will find that my liberty is helpful. The technical purpose of this report is under our previous sexual misconduct policy. I think it was policy 5.2. The system has an important role, expectation for the Title IX coordinator to report annually to all of you about what the data is telling us about reports that have come forward. And it was an unintended omission that provision was omitted when we stood up the new policy and procedure. And I've got a working document in which we're going to address some of the tinkers that we need to before the next semester. And I assure you, we'll make sure that we restore that. So for whomever brought this to my attention as an outsider that we needed to do this fall, I'm grateful for it. So I'm going to provide you the data that comes from the annual reports that the campuses make to the legislature. I'm also going to provide a very high-level overview of what's happening in the training space, both sort of the system level initiatives and also what's happening on the campus and the kinds of community support and outreach programs that are occurring. And then I figured you might also just benefit in knowing, you know, just a general overview of the kinds of things that I'm seeing in my capacity of leading the Title IX efforts since we put the new policies in place for August 1st. And I anticipated you might also wonder what's ahead. Obviously, we've had a presidential election occur in the intervening months. And so trust me, I wish if I had all the answers, I would tell you, but I can try to give you a little bit of a crystal ball to the best I can. So the centerpiece of this presentation is really about what we dub the 1411 reports. So Connecticut statute requires that CT State and the 4 CSUs report by September 30th of each year on the data for the prior calendar year. And so in my role, I worked with the 5 campuses. Charter Oak doesn't technically have this obligation without a brick and mortar presence, but of course Dave, who is here, our Title IX coordinator for Charter Oak, and I compared notes, and I've got that data included here as well. And so what I'm going to provide for you is what Angelo Simone had done in the past, which is the data for the year that we just reported on. And I've got the comparator data from the prior reporting year, which was 2022. And I think that this presentation might not have happened for all of you last fall in the sort of transition. And so hopefully that'll help you all to catch up a little bit. And by all means, if there's other information that you want following this presentation, I'll be glad to get it to you. One other thing to know is this reporting cycle was the first one where we had what I would call a unified report for CT State. In the past, the community colleges had all reported independently. Of course, now CT State being its own institution, the report was done at the high institutional level. And one other thing to know is I worked with the Title IX coordinators and how they gathered the data. At the risk of getting overly technical, the Connecticut statute uses some terms that I'll put in front of you in just a minute that have different meanings than how Title IX uses some of those same terms. And it can create a lot of confusion. So we sort of worked to slow down and make sure that we were all pulling together the same conceptual data to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples across campuses. We also engaged in a bit of an informal exercise to take a look around some of the other reporting that there's no prescribed format that the legislature gives institutions. So we took a look at a couple of other institutions, and it provided some opportunity to improve how we do our reporting as well. So the key terms for you to know are that the Connecticut statute asks campuses to report on sexual misconduct. And so here we're talking about cases of sexual assault, stalking, and the Connecticut statute uses the term interpersonal violence or intimate partner violence. And that term encapsulates dating and domestic violence. And of course, those terms, sexual assault, stalking, dating, and domestic violence, those are 4 of the key categories of Title IX definitions as well. The Connecticut statute asks institutions to look at disclosures. What are the, how many incidents occurred or occasions occurred where a student made a disclosure either to the Title IX coordinator or to another mandated reporter. And from that, usually your number of disclosures is a lot larger than your number of reports. A report, in the language of the Connecticut statute, is when a individual, a potentially harmed party, asks the institution to investigate or to follow up in some formal way. And reports are the term. That's the thing that our board policy. That's the information that the board has asked for per the board policy. So that's where I've focused the data. It goes without saying, by the way, you can ask me questions as we go, but I'll just keep going until I hear back from you. So for the calendar year 2023, we've got the data on screen, and hopefully you all can see it. It sort of shows you over, it's actually a relatively low, what you might be surprised at the relatively low number of reports. By the way, if you were to look at let me go back to this definition. If you were to look at our policy now, our procedures now, you would see that the concept of a disclosure is now called a report under the Title IX terminology, and a complaint is the term for a report under the Title IX. So you can appreciate how this can get very confusing very quickly when you're starting to sort of roll up data across all the campuses. So at the end of the day, it's my observation and my opinion that the data that you see is relatively static, I would say, compared to the 2022 data that I will show you in just a minute, and the prior year's data. I had the benefit of looking at the report that Angelo made to you, I believe would have been in the fall of 2022, about the 2021 data. Charter Oak, it doesn't come as a surprise that we don't have reports of these most serious forms of sexual misconduct, given its format, although it is not, outside the realm of possibility that even in a completely online setting, Charter Oak, Dave could find himself at some point dealing with an allegation of stalking or some form of interpersonal violence, even though the individuals, may be in a fully online setting. Remember too that this data, per the Connecticut statute, it looks at the incidents that fall within the jurisdiction to follow up on. And I didn't include the disclosure data on screen, but I thought you might want to know about it. Like, how many are we talking about in terms of the broad number of disclosures? And it across the 5 institutions, because Dave, I didn't ask you this number, but my guess is you wouldn't have enough data points to make a statistically significant change anyway. We were looking at about 293 disclosures across the system, which distilled down to this smaller number of reports. And that is, that's just, in my opinion, in my experience as a Title IX practitioner all over the country, that's about right. You'd almost be surprised how many reports or disclosures are made, which it turns out the behavior which is alleged doesn't actually meet one of these definitions. Outreach is made to an individual to see if they'd like to learn more about resources and process options. Often those outreach emails are not responded to. That's a very common thing in our work. And of course, we may also have situations where an individual follows back up and they say, yes, I'd love to talk with you. I'd like to learn more about options. I would benefit from some supportive measures from the institution, but I'm not interested in filing a report in the terms of the Connecticut law. I really would prefer that the institution not investigate. And that's often appropriate. Title IX coordinators, all of them, do a great job of screening every disclosure that comes through to determine, is there some obligation that the institution needs to move forward with a formal investigation, even above an individual's wishes. This, in terms of proportionality, the numbers are appropriate. I changed the slide. What you're looking at now are the 2022 reports. So again, this is data that I believe you all didn't have the opportunity to see last year, just given the gap in Title IX staffing. But you'll see it's roughly comparable to the data that I just gave you for 2023. And similarly, it is more or less comparable to what you would have seen for the calendar year 2021 data as well. So I'll stop and ask if there's any questions about the
Mind if I
data.
interject for just 1 second?
Sure, please, Cameron.
All right, awesome. So I also just want to note in terms of disclosures and then reports, the Connecticut statute is very broad in terms of how they define disclosures, and disclosures do not necessarily have to be affiliated with the institution in any way, right? So a disclosure could be something that happened years and years before their affiliation with the institution, and that would still be something that, a report would come in and we would offer support and things along those lines, but investigative authority just may not exist in many of those cases. And Kim, I don't know if you have the specific data behind that, but from my experience at different institutions, that actually makes up the majority of the disclosures that are coming in from third-party reporters.
Yeah, I do not have that data rolled up at my level, but it's a great point, Cameron. And we can look at, working with the campuses to discern what proportion of those disclosures might be essentially those kind of historic reports or out of program reports where the institution appropriately responds, with that outreach, those supportive measures, but there may not be anything inside of the institution's jurisdiction. So we can certainly pull that together if folks would find that helpful. So the other component of our reporting is, and here sort of in the interest of data and also in the interest of privacy, I've rolled it up in aggregate, the notion of case outcomes, and this is how these presentations have typically presented this in the past. But one thing that we tried to look at in pulling together the data for this year, when I sort of worked with the team to engage in this reporting exercise, was also to try to discern between, and this is Title IX talk parlance here, cases which are, reports which are handled with a formal investigation as opposed to, or in contrast to, reports which end up getting resolved informally. And both of those mechanisms are appropriate under Title IX and appropriate under Connecticut law. Again, it always falls to the Title IX coordinator to be using their discretion about whether a circumstance, a report is an appropriate place to use an informal resolution. I think in past years, I'm not sure that you had received that report, but in my judgment, I thought it was sort of really helpful context to know sort of how the cases were handled. And again, this does not surprise me just on the piece about informal resolutions. And I've got some examples of the kinds of things that were, included in those informal resolutions. I realized in hindsight, some of the campuses had included some of the substance and others hadn't. Remember that at the time of this data, we were operating under the 2020 regulations, which had a live hearing requirement and also had some pretty narrow definitions about some of these policy violations. And so we have seen increasingly in our practice individual complainants who sort of look at the process options and say to themselves, I would actually prefer to explore an informal resolution, or perhaps they start an investigation process and then they say, you know what I really want is, for this individual to, not be in the same residence hall with me, or, and so in the Title IX coordinator's judgment, if the individuals can reach an agreement, and that agreement is, we're not dealing with a circumstance which presents any ongoing safety issues for the community at large, or for our complainant for that matter, it's okay to handle things informally. And I know that often evokes the idea of a mediation. It typically isn't. It's often a negotiated agreement between the parties. So we did have a certain cohort of these cases that were handled under informal resolution. The formal resolution outcomes are included here as well. I gathered you might want to know the circumstances of the one that is still pending outcome, and it's actually almost closed. It was a situation where it took some time to discern what the actual allegations were. And again, I know that might seem odd, but sometimes through the course of an intake process, it can be difficult to really sort of understand what the allegations are and figure out sort of whether it fits within any of these policies or not. There was also a staffing transition in the investigator configuration here in this particular case. And so it came in very late in the end of the reporting year, was sort of into the spring semester before they were able to actually discern what the allegations were, discern that the complainant wanted to move forward with an investigation process. And that is coming to a close probably in the next few weeks. On the training and community kind of support piece, and I've got a couple of slides that sort of tried to, and let me say, now I'm sort of shifting into what's going on now, and I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit between current and then what the campuses were doing in the calendar year 2023, because I'm trying to sort of achieve two goals here at the same time. But I have been working with Lori and the human resources colleagues, and of course now with Cameron, to plan a rollout for our mandated reporter training obligations under the 2024 regulations. There's some of the campuses, some of the 4 years have already done some of this with some of the technology and module-based training that they had available. In my judgment, the existing vendor agreements that we had, the products were fine, but they, under the regulations that we're currently governed under, there are a couple of different ways to structure your mandated reporting requirement. And I had some concern that the content would really muddy. The content as the vendors had created it would muddy the message to our employees that they are mandated reporters and they must make a report to the Title IX coordinator when they learn of an incident that potentially falls within Title IX. So one of the vendors took my feedback. I think they were very happy to have some free advice about how to improve their content, and they're actually modifying it for us this month. So we hope to have that ready to go in January, and that's a project that Cameron and I will be working on with others. The student training, campuses have done a great job using one of our existing vendors, Vector, to complete that. Of course, Title IX does not require training of our students, but Connecticut law does, as does federal law under the Violence Against Women Act. We have an RFP process underway to always re-examine our vendors who are doing training in this space and making sure that the content is keeping pace with the state of the law, and also sort of meeting all of our content needs, particularly as we're broadening into a broader civil rights policy, and also make sure that the technology meets the needs of the system and the campuses as well. And there is a lot of small group training that happens this fall and certainly happened in the fall prior. Campus Title IX coordinators do many sort of hands-on training with small groups of employees or folks, groups like the student residential life staff as well. So it's, particularly for the audiences who need to do regular training, it's more than just that kind of, modular training. We've also got training obligations as a system for the individuals who do the work on a day-to-day basis. So under the Title IX regulations, folks who serve in coordinating, the Title IX coordinators themselves, folks who are in investigation and adjudicative roles. And I actually served as a trainer in my capacity for a TICSN TNG that CT State hosted in June. It was really well attended, really fantastic couple of days. I've been doing some customized training for folks around the system, and obviously the Title IX coordinators have been doing that kind of training for their folks as well. And our system uses some online training modules and some virtual training opportunities put out by an organization called SUNY Sci. And there's it's a pretty common provider in terms of getting different folks around the campus who might need to get trained up, say to serve as an appeals decision maker. I think Cameron and I see a lot of opportunity now that he's here to really sort of think a little bit more broadly about how, not just to make sure the training is getting done, but make sure that folks are really getting the skills that they need in order to do the work with the care that it requires. This one slide is probably an unsatisfactory summary of the hundreds of great community outreach programs that were happening in calendar year 2023. The Title IX coordinators working with their Office of Victim Advocacy or their campus advocates, depending on how they title them, their LGBTQ pride centers, their women's centers, doing, not only meeting the obligations under Connecticut state law and federal law around Title IX awareness and bystander intervention, but there also have just been a really rich set of training and programming and outreach, particularly in partnership with this local sexual assault clinics in their area, the dating domestic violence organizations. Most of the campuses were sort of buying into some prevention and outreach, national events, Denim Day, Clothesline Project. These are some efforts that are focused particularly on dating and domestic violence, which are common, challenges that you face in your particular setting. A couple of other high-level updates. Obviously, you've met Cameron, and there's great hires. This is me talking. I've gotten a chance to know Cameron a little bit in his prior role at UConn. I also wanted to bring to folks' attention that Western filled its, and I will certainly get the title wrong with apologies, but the Vice President of DEI position, and that brings Jennifer Labate into serving as the Title IX coordinator for Western. Scott Towers did an awesome job holding down the fort for a long time. Jennifer is a former client of mine from Post University, and she's outstanding. So I was just thrilled that she came on with the system. Lori and I have been on a feedback and listening tour associated with the interim policy and the interim procedures that we were able to complete with your support. And so I have a document for Cameron in which I'm like, here's all the things that we've been learning over the fall. And I know that he and I will be looking at that over the winter break to determine. I don't think it's a question of whether, it's a question of when do we want to publish a second version of the procedures that address some of those issues. I can tell you, we have achieved our goal in terms of the value and wisdom of having a single policy across all civil rights issues, the clarity that it has brought to the folks who do this work of this is our policy, this is our procedure. They are using me as a resource to say, help me think about this case. Does it fall within this policy or not? How do we want to process this? Is this appropriate for an informal resolution? I've been doing a lot of coaching We're using informal resolution where appropriate, and I can tell you that's a good thing. It often is a great way to stop, prevent, and remedy harassment and misconduct when it occurs, as long as it's used appropriately and judiciously. And we've gotten good feedback overall from unions and stakeholders, and Cameron and I will sort of continue with that process as we go. We do expect, obviously, the election is going to have an effect on Title IX. Before I sort of talk about the rule, the election, obviously, you all will remember from this summer, the Biden administration's 2024 regulations had a host of challenges in courts around the country. And those are still going on, and we're still watching them really closely. None of them have formally affected our system or any of our campuses, but there's a chance that there could be a court ruling, even notwithstanding anything the Trump administration does. So we're continuing to watch that really closely. Obviously, we expect the Trump administration to make some changes to the Title IX regulations. I think that's unavoidable. I think the question is when and by what method, because the regulations that we're currently operating under are formal federal regulations. Technically, the administration would have to go through another rulemaking cycle. So if history is a guide, we're probably looking at a couple of years before we have new changes, new federal regulations. Obviously, we're not quite sure if history is going to be a guide, right? Whether or not there's going to be some effort to do something by executive order. So we're watching that really closely. I do anticipate that the Trump administration will seek to reintroduce a live hearing requirement. So we moved away from that because we weren't obliged to, but also because we were moving to a global civil rights process, and we were worried about our ability to staff a hearing model across all protected characteristic cases. I'm not sure that that was as much of a concern as it needed to be. I think one thing Cameron and I have already begun to think about whether or not to recommend and explore is if we anticipate that the Trump administration will return to live hearings, whether we think about making that change proactively for sort of ease of implementation. So we're going to look at that as well. And the last thing I just want to tell you, because I don't know if I'll have a chance to meet you all again, is if your disclosures go up in the terms of this presentation, that's not a bad thing. When members of your campuses have trust and faith in the policies, the procedures, the system, the staff who are doing this work, it will often result in more reports. And so I know for trustees that may seem like it's a warning thing, but it actually can be a really beneficial thing because it shows that people have faith and confidence in the system and can turn to it to respond to things. So I know I've gone over by a couple minutes. I apologize. I'm happy to answer whatever questions, and I can imagine Cameron would as well, even though he may be less versed in the data specifically.
If I may, then thank you very much, Kim. That's very informative. Questions from the regents? Comments from the regents?
Regent James?
Just one question, comment. It seems like we've made a lot of progress, particularly around the clarity and consistency, and that is a huge step forward. At this stage, is it too early to tell if we have concerns about what might be required to change going into the future with what we see happening in the external landscape, or is it really too early to speculate?
I think often and Cameron, you may have a different take on this than me. I think the common concern around where the Trump administration will go with Title IX substantively is the revisiting of the Trump administration interpretation about whether discrimination on the basis of sex includes discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. And so whereas blue presidential administrations have interpreted Title IX to include that, red ones have not. Now, the Biden administration etched it into federal regulation. I do predict that the Trump administration will take us back and say, never mind, Title IX does not prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. But to your question, Regent James, I'm not concerned about it because Connecticut law prohibits discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. So as a matter of system commitment to ensuring that our programs and activities do not discriminate against transgender individuals or any LGBTQ individuals, our commitment is not going to change. It just may be that the source of the law may change, but it will certainly cause, it would ordinarily cause, sort of just on the face, and of course the national discourse, stress and uncertainty for members of our communities. And so, obviously then it's incumbent upon us, and Cameron and I are already talking about this, how do we make sure that we communicate well, that nothing is anticipated to change.
Other questions or comments? Do you want to take the page off the screen, please? Kim?
Of course.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to add on a little bit to what Kim said is, my perspective is, the federal regulations set the floor. And I think that it would be prudent to expect that we could see some floor lowering in terms of explicit right protection at the federal level. However, as Kim appropriately noted, operational impact of that will be little. Personal impact will be high, and it will certainly behoove us to take the mission on to explain, this is still protected here. These are still things that we hold as our values in terms of protection at our institutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the regents? Questions?
Regent Porth?
I'm sorry, Regent Porth?
You're muted.
Muted.
Thanks, Ira. I'll do this quickly. I know you alluded to this a little bit in your presentation, but is there a way to gauge or measure more how our communications and educational efforts are working with regard to these issues?
Yeah, I think, I don't have the data in front of me. And I don't know that if it's been presented to these committees in the past, it certainly could be in the future, is the campuses all engage in climate survey data. And that's sort of the, thumbnail term, but it sort of, it's a survey done by each particular campus about, what is the climate around sexual misconduct issues on campus? And often a component of it is how well do the survey participants understand or believe their peers to understand the people, the process, the procedure, sort of, how to make a report and what would happen. And so Connecticut has a survey requirement. We had one campus who was just got their survey going this fall, but at this point, I think by the end of this year, we'll have all campuses in the routine of doing surveying, including CT State, sort of looking things at a system level. And so, Cameron, one of the things that we haven't even had a chance to catch up on all the things that will go on the Kim to Cameron list, but we'll be sort of figuring out how to pull up all of that survey data. And because I think that often, the campuses who have been working on this for some time, Eastern comes to mind. Folks will remember Eastern had sort of a public kerfuffle around Title IX, and I happen to be, in my capacity as a TNG consultant, one of the folks who worked on sort of helping them put their system back together. They see it in their survey results that students, that the educational efforts have worked, and students know, who and how to get the assistance they might need.
Okay,
and not
thank you.
just students, faculty and staff as well, whether they need it for themselves or because they're in a position of guiding a student in that kind of help and assistance.
That's encouraging. I would just say, hopefully going forward, we continue to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's a great thought. Thank you.
Do we have a policy in the case of reported sexual assaults? Do we have a policy of those being reported to the police, to the local police departments?
We do not typically, we do not, and you typically wouldn't for an adult. So the general way of thinking about it is that an individual who's 18 or above has the ability and agency to make a report to law enforcement. The policy, the obligation for campuses, and this is a federal requirement, and something that the Title IX coordinators do when they do their outreach, is to make sure that individuals are informed about how they can make a report, whether it's to campus law enforcement or perhaps if something gets reported that doesn't fall within campus law enforcement's jurisdiction, how they could reach out to whatever the appropriate municipality or whatever the various, police jurisdictional unit would be. And so, but the university usually doesn't make that report. Now, if we've got a situation with a minor or that carries some sort of other reporting obligation, either to law enforcement or of course to, and someone can help me here, I'm a national practitioner and I always butcher the acronyms, DPS, DFS, what's the term of art for Child Protective Services in Connecticut? I'm sorry if I'm getting my acronyms screwy, but I know you're following. If there's some sort of incident of suspected child abuse, that the Title IX coordinators would make those reports as well.
I want to thank you very much for the report. I think it is very informative. I think it's very important that we have caught up with the current year requirements. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm anytime I can answer any questions or provide any information that would be helpful to the Regents in your work. Just please don't hesitate to call on Cameron, and we'll make it happen.
I just, this is
Thank
Elise.
you.
Right. I just want to say this is probably one of the most comprehensive reports that I've had that I've heard since I've been on the board.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I take it then it was useful, not comprehensive in a bad way.
Yeah, no, it was very useful. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks, Kim.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, everyone. I'll see myself out. It was nice to reconnect with all of you. Bye,
I will-
everyone.
I will
Happy,
sign
Thank
happy
you,
you.
Lori.
holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And we'd like to thank the Human Resources Board Committee who joined us for that presentation. And I believe Chair Bloom, we'd like to regavel in our Academic and Student Affairs Committee and ask that Kayla, just as a detail, ask for a roll call.
Yeah, we'll call the
Okay,
roll.
super.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right. Welcome to the December meeting of the Board Committee on Academic and Student Affairs. Today is December 6th. I would appreciate the secretary calling the roll. Ms. Davis?
Thank you. Regent Bloom,
Present.
Regent James,
Present.
Regent Porth.
Present.
We have a quorum, and I would also just like to recognize our ex officio member, Professor Sasenka. Thank you.
Thank you. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of October 10th, 2024. Any comments on the minutes of October 10th, 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Regent Porth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor of approving the minutes of October 10th, 2024?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes of October 10th are approved. Second item is approval of the minutes of November 5th, special meeting. Any comments about the minutes of the special meeting on November 5th? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 5th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, meeting minutes of November 5th, 2024 are approved. Second item of business is the academic update from Eastern Connecticut State University. Dr. Pauly, I saw you on the screen before.
Yes.
Good
morning, everyone.
Good morning,
It's,
Dr. Pauly.
Morning. I am joining you from the same room as several of my colleagues at the annual meeting of NECHI in Boston,
It looks,
which is
the room looks somehow very, very familiar this morning.
it's very imposing room, and it's possibly the strangest way I've ever taken a meeting. But that's so it's the very end of the semester, of course, and I can report that we have 153 students graduating in December. And this year, at the request of students and their parents, we had a reception for December graduates this Wednesday. In the past, I think when our proportion of December to May graduates was a little different from what it is now. We, excuse me, we used to have commencement exercises in December, and that's something that had fallen away over time. But the students asked, and we thought, yeah, this is absolutely something we should do. This is a milestone we should celebrate with them. And so there was a reception on Eastern's campus Wednesday night. I wasn't able to be there because I was here. But I'm told we had about 100 people in total, graduates, their friends, family, support networks. And it was just a great chance to celebrate their accomplishment, to congratulate them, and to recognize them. And we look forward to seeing them again at our commencement exercises in May. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the reception when I get back to campus. And I'm hoping that will become a new tradition that we observe every year.
And that completes your report?
Yes, thank you.
Well, okay, thank you very much. Southern Connecticut State University, Dr. Irwin, your report?
I wanted to take the time today to talk about two grant initiatives that are in progress that impact the entire system. So they are both spearheaded by my colleague, Christine Brobridge at Southern Connecticut State University, who chairs up the Innovation Hub and has been doing work on quantum in Connecticut, which will be familiar to some of you. So the completion of NSF Phase 1 Quantum CT is done. There's a pre-proposal for Phase 2, and this will be kind of a system-wide approach to implementing a workforce program based on the successful BioPath and Worth IAF models that are focusing on impacting the community college system. So if this grant were to be funded, it will engage the entire CSCU system, including Charter Oak. The timeline for rollout is 10 years. The initial grant is 2 years. In addition to that, Matthew Engelron, again, Christine Brockridge, and myself are submitting an EPIC, which is Enabling Partnerships to Increase Innovation Capacity, NSF grant, partnering with Allegheny College and Zula, which is Xavier University of Louisiana, which is built to fund partnerships that build the capacity of community colleges, minority serving institutions, and emerging research universities. And so I just want all to be aware that if these were to be funded, these resources would provide access to the entire system and give skills and kind of resources along the lines of tech transfer, IP knowledge, building of relationships with industry. So I just wanted everybody to know as we submit them, what might be coming down the pike. Thank you.
Thank you. We traveled to the western part of the state, Western Connecticut. Dr. Hagedis.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in Boston too, but I'm not with my colleagues downstairs. I apologize, but thank you.
You're not in the famous room with
I'm not
everybody else.
I'm not famous enough, Region Blue. So. I have some updates for you before we present our new program today. A lot of what I aim to update in each month is also in relation to our ongoing work with respect to our NECI work. And so a lot of this will tie in simultaneously. Last week, our Senate forwarded a resolution to change the schedule, the organization of our class schedule, which I had asked them to work on. When I arrived at Western, there was concern with the existing schedule, that it didn't give enough access for students, enough equity in terms of how courses were offered across the week. There was no common hour. So following conversations with our registrar, it was clear that we needed to change it so that we had a balance across the week. So I'm pleased to say that that was forwarded to our president last week. And I think simultaneously, we're implementing a platform called CourseLeaf, which will allow the chairs and the deans to help implement the various complexity and the rules around when courses and how long courses should be offered, which will be ultimately a great benefit to our students. So it's an important piece of work with sort of the academic business of how we structure our students' workload. Simultaneously, Senate adopted a new framework for Gen Ed in May at the end of last academic year. There's been a lot of work since then throughout this semester of aligning the program maps to the new framework. That is almost complete. The next steps will be to focus on the assessments and the rubrics. And I consider that to be a major contributing factor to address our effectiveness, our educational effectiveness work around Standard 8. It's been an interesting time at NECI. There's been a lot of presentations around assessment, not just instructional, but non-instructional as well. This allows us to, again, to think through the specific needs and the effectiveness of the services, the wraparound services for students. And so there's been it's been really a rich, engaging conversation here about how institutions try and address this in different ways. And so we are continuing to implement not just survey work, but also smaller, more granular ways to understand how our students are working at and getting the supports they need, whether it's advising right the way through to support and counseling, etc. One thing that I'm really proud of here as well, we have a university senate, and so the work of thinking through the schedule was presented by our SGA president, our faculty lead, and a dean. And I think that says a lot about the integrative work that we're conducting here as we think through our future and next steps. Lastly, I would like to just go back to the previous presentation that we heard, and our new Chief DEI Officer, Jennifer LeBate, was referenced. And Jennifer has been in place as our new Chief DEI Officer for about 3 weeks now and has hit the ground running. And that's working very closely on developing our DEI master plan, which is another concern from NECI. And she's fully at work there in how that ties together with our new strategic plan. So a lot of progress is being made as we approach the end of the calendar year. We are also working on our five-year multi-year financial plan by specifically looking at analyzing our enrollment projections program by program across our schools. So this has been a very fine granular analysis that reflects on the demographers' data, but also knowing what we are doing with reconfiguring our programs and presenting new programs, so we have a more local strategic perspective on what we believe will actually counter some of the enrollment declines with our new work. And that segues nicely into what we're presenting today as one example of that. Thank you, Regent Bloom.
Thank you. Any questions or comments up to this point? Okay. Dr. Hagedis, do you want to present the program in atmospheric climate science?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm to present a new program today in atmospheric and climate science, new bachelor's program. I'm joined by our Dean of Macrocostas Arts and Sciences, Dr. Michelle Brown, and also Department Chairperson, Dr. Dora Pinu. I can see Dora. Is Michelle? I can see Michelle as well now. Thank you. We're very excited about this. Is the faculty in the biology department working about a year, and this is, I think, a really concrete example of when you look carefully at your program data, your enrollment data, and we saw that the previous program in meteorology was not succeeding in terms of our student completion rates, so we sunsetted that. And sometimes you have to stop doing certain things to do new things, right? So there's a balance there, and this is a great example of really looking at what students need and a redesign of a program that we're presenting today. This program has 2 tracks within it, what I call a standard track, and also an accelerated track. This accelerated track will then be coupled with a new master's program in meteorology that is forthcoming, and that will allow some students to advance into certain careers as outlined in the proposal. I'm going to stop there and pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Michelle Brown, Dean Brown, and Dr. Penick for specific points around the program development and where we're at, and then we'll welcome your questions. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Provost Hagedis, and thank you all for having us here. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. So this new program that we're discussing today helps us serve two types of student pathways. So we've never really had an issue with students being interested in studying climate. That market has been there, and the new student enrollments have been consistent. What we found, as Provost Hagedis said, was that some students did not have the preparation or the interest to pursue sort of advanced level computational sort of climate modeling and that meteorological research, but they still wanted to do work in climate and weather. So this design allows us to capitalize on the fact that the market is already there for students to enroll in the program, but the 2 paths that Provost Hagedis mentioned allow us to serve both those students who want to study this type of area and leave with a bachelor's degree, but also to accommodate those students who are interested in more advanced work and want to go on and work for the National Weather Service and the American Meteorological Society, both of which entities our curriculum aligns with in order to allow students to get the jobs with those qualifications that they need. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic, so to speak, over to Dr. Dora Pinu, who chairs the department. So thank you.
So hi, everyone. Thank you very much for including me in this conversation. I don't want to take up a lot of time because I'm not really sure what kinds of questions people have, but I think what's important is the accelerated program includes a math minor. The non-accelerated or the standard program, as Provost Hagedis mentioned, does not, but it embeds the strategy being used there. And the strategy that's, this has come with a lot of conversation with program officers at NSF, is this idea of embedding mathematics that are discipline specific in the courses. And it's probably not a new idea, but it's one that we would like to, in a way, assess, right? Does it work? Can it work for us? And reverse this problem we've had and build confidence in a demographic that maybe has not had as much confidence in the mathematics associated with a very a computational based degree. Thank you.
Okay, Provost Hagedis, that concludes the initial presentation, correct?
It does. Thank
Okay.
you, Regent Bloom.
Questions or comments from the regents, please? Okay. I have a question, a note. I understand from other readings that generative AI is playing an increasing role in weather forecasting, and there is a reference to it in the materials on page 20, including in. Do you want to talk a bit about that, because I think this is apparently the way we're moving in weather forecasting, and people tell me we will have much more accurate weather forecasts. I'm not sure I don't know if that's true or not. Don't have the expertise to, but that seems to be what is being claimed at this point.
Yeah, we certainly heard about that here as well this week in Boston. We've had many talks around AI and generative AI. It's certainly a component of this program. Dr. Pina or Dean Brown, would you like to specifically address that?
I mean, I'm happy to touch upon it. I mean, look, everything is AI now, right?
Yeah.
Google is
Yes.
AI, right? But I think what's important that maybe we're not, we had my previous grant, we had a wonderful speaker from NOAA that came last week and really opened my eyes about the power of this program. There's really, weather forecasting is a very small part of this program, right? When I think about weather forecasting will support, informing communities about what's going to happen in the weather. So AI helps because it allows you to pull the data together and, predict better when the wind speed is going to change, when the temperature is going to change. It allows you to think about the fluids. We don't think about gases as fluids, but to think about the chemistry of what's going on in the atmosphere. And that leads me to my second part, that the program is also focused on understanding those fluid dynamics that are happening in the atmosphere, which is really the science of climate change, and thinking about how we can use the science to maybe mitigate what's happening, slow things down. So weather is a small piece. And if your question is, will AI or information gathering, pattern building happen better? Better is a funny word. It's qualitative. I think it will happen faster.
Faster, yep.
If I may ask one further question, does the course of study in the program look at the impact of climate change on, for example, sea levels and other consequences for public policy? I mean, I taught for a number of years a course in the City University that deals in part with the fact that New York City is four islands plus the Bronx, and the only safe place in a sense is the Bronx because it's on the mainland. But I'm just curious about, because this is obviously a serious matter, and in our part of the state along the coast, when we have major storms, you can see it in the areas where Regent James and I are after a major storm. What happens along the parts of our communities that are on the coastline?
Sure, I can comment on that if I may. We currently have an outstanding oceanographer in our group. And so absolutely sea level rise, not just sea level rise, but also carbon sequestration, temperature change, what's happening to, is a big part of what he studies, but also, the economics of fisheries. And it's not just the coastline. I think what we're realizing is, the strength that we have at WestCon is, we are at the head of everything that goes downhill. So there's a lot that we have to understand about what we're doing and what's happening where we are locally that that can help mitigate what's happening downstream. And that is exactly I think our strength in this program, is understanding the full system, is taking a system approach. It was affirmed at the last seminar that we had earlier this, oh my God, earlier this week. It's like how the days are, that, things are going to change. Question is, how much will they change, and are we going to be ready for it? And can technology help us minimize what's going on? So I'm excited. We're excited. There's lots of money out there, and I think we've got the talent in our department. We understand the importance of grant raising, and I think we've got a really good, we're making a good start. So I think it's going to be.
There's been, I would to second that. Dora and her colleagues are the largest grant getters at Westcon, and this will certainly accelerate that as well. We have a great weather center, which is a great resource for our students as well. That was in the proposal, and just in the process of appointing a new faculty director of that. So there's a lot of opportunities and experiential learning for our students.
And if I may just add to that piece, is Dora and I have already talked extensively and have an understanding of how we're going to proceed, at least with the initial round of grant applications. So we've already done all that thinking already. So we're really, really excited to, hit that start button.
Great. Any other comments from the regents?
I have one comment.
James?
I have one comment, which is, to the extent that everything right now in our society has become so polarized, especially around the topic of climate change and how real is it and all of those things, it is really heartening to see the amount of enlightenment and what is going on here in the institution, to address that in a very factual, data, based way. As we go forward with this, I do think at a higher level, we should be constantly thinking about how do we help to influence the narrative on the larger scale of taking this information seriously, and also articulating and protecting the value that this kind of work and research and pedagogy brings to some of the challenges that are facing us. Because it seems as though there's a closed circle of the believers who support and encourage and appreciate this work. And we have a lot of work to do in converting more people to understanding and appreciating the work that is happening and that has to continue to happen.
I agree. I think that's probably one of our most fundamental roles in higher education at this time.
If there are no further comments, Regent Porth, were you?
You're muted.
I'm fine. Thank you, Ira.
Thank you. I just want to note one item before we move to a vote. There is the certification on page 40 that this program is consistent with the Western's deficit mitigation plan. So
yes, it is.
Note of that. All those in favor of approving this program and recommending it to the full board?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations. The committee has approved the program. It will go to the full board at the next full board meeting. Thank you for this very interesting and informative presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Regents.
Thank you.
Okay, we are, I think we have concluded torturing Dr. Haagen-Dazs and company. It's time to move to Central. Provost Costello.
Great, thank you. I am not in Boston, missing my colleagues. Plan to go, but too much to do. But anyways, as an update, we do have winter commencement on next Saturday, the 14th. We have 886 graduate and undergraduate students who will receive diplomas. Not all walking, but will receive their diplomas. 95% of the graduating class are from Connecticut. The remaining are from 17 states, Puerto Rico, as well as Brazil, China, India, Netherlands, and Turkey. And also overall, 53% of our overall student body is first gen students too. So we're looking forward to the winter commencement because it's the one time where all of our colleges and schools are together, because in the spring it's too large and we have two different ceremonies and split the schools and the colleges. So winter is always a nice time to celebrate in a more intimate setting despite the number of students. So. And also, I'll just put a plug in that because I think the last time I gave an update, I think we were heading into our gala or we had just come off of our gala. And we did raise over $600,000 in scholarships as well as foundation funding too as well. So that was a great event as well too. So just thought I'd give an update there.
Thank you. Okay, your first item of business is the program modification for the Masters in Student Development and Higher Education.
Yes. Great. So I think the first one is a vote, but I know I'm going to speak to the second piece too that is below modification too, kind of at the same time, because it sort of makes sense to talk about
we should
overall
definitely do that
changes.
at the same time. Yes.
So
we will take items B and C, 6B and C together, although 6C technically does not need approval by the committee, but they're part of a package. Thank you.
Great.
So please go ahead.
Great, thank you. So the first piece is that we are changing the name so that it is a standalone program. Currently in our department, we have marriage and family therapy, school counseling, professional counseling, and then student development in higher education. And so although the program itself is still remaining within the counseling department and does have a counseling core of classes, we have changed some of the other courses, the designator, so that it is that standalone student development in higher education, because a lot of our graduates, some do stay within the counseling field, but many are also in other student support services, as well as student affairs, academic affairs, student activities, and leadership. So it is more inclusive to be that standalone, as well as to be able to hopefully provide a lot more growth opportunities. Within the last 5 years, our enrollment has ranged from 33 to a high of 46. Right now, we're currently at 39. And there's a lot of opportunities to be able to continue to grow. And because one of them that we've heard feedback, because actually some of our workers who have wanted to pursue our graduate degree, they're going to other competitors who have lower credit requirements. So we are reducing and aligning with other graduate programs and going from 42 credits to 36 credits. The main two pieces of that reducing the number of credits is the removal of a practicum class, as well as a group dynamics class. However, as I mentioned, there's still a core 3 counseling course core, and that are more aligned with what our graduates are needing in the field. As well as we removed the practicum. However, there was a practicum and an internship requirement. So that was also some of the backlog, because all of these graduates are working within the field already, oftentimes across all of our institutions as well within the system. So we switched, so there's the one requirement But we changed that from the internship to a practicum just because it, one, aligns with the consistency within the field. Practicum naturally usually speaks more to education and more supervised experience versus an internship is more independent. Also, there was a lot of confusion with the terminology of an intern because a lot of our students were graduate interns in our system across, again, all of our institutions. So there was that level of confusion. So we took the internship name and it's a practicum. And then, as I already mentioned, reduced the requirements to that one main experiential opportunity as well. And the last piece that we changed to as well, again, to make sure that we're preparing our students, is removing an elective and adding a case study class that allows the students to have more exposure to additional areas within student development and higher education. Because especially post-pandemic, there's more and more of a need in a lot of these service areas, as well as some different ways of approaching the different areas too. So there was that greater need to have some more discussion and preparation for our students. So we're hoping that with these marketable changes, that we will be able to continue to increase the number of our students as well, which also should be able to serve a lot of our institutions across the system too. As I mentioned, a lot of them are working at our institutions at the same time as pursuing their graduate degree.
Thank you. Comments from the regents? Questions? Okay. If I may go back in time, the people that are being trained by this program are in the field we used to call student personnel services back in 1802. But it's no longer fashionable, I guess, that term. But this is the group. So it's a students who, this group provides many of the wraparound services for students that we have been talking about, that we've been talking about now.
Yes.
That's okay. If there are no comments, may I have a motion to recommend 6B, the modification, to the full board for approval?
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion's approved. It'll be recommended to the full board at the next full board meeting. Do you want to talk a bit about the endowed chair reports?
Sure. Yeah. So we have 3 of them: our American Savings Foundation Endowed Chair in Finance and Banking, as well as the Governor William O'Neill Endowed Chair in Public Policy and Practical Politics, as well as the Robert C. Vance Endowed Chair in Journalism and Mass Communication. The American Savings Foundation, where our endowed chair has been doing a wonderful job aligning with the industry, bringing a lot of great speakers into the program, doing a banking excellence program, and is being renewed again within that role. So we're excited to see him continue. It's always great to have that level of consistency and the expertise that he brings from the industry into exposing our students as well. The O'Neill Endowed Chair just recently went through, and we'll have a new chair stepping in, but the report was the practices from before. So again, a lot of integration within our classes, as well as our cultural centers, as well as service learning projects and advocacy going out to the state capitol. So a lot of great work that was being done there as well. And the last one, the Endowed Chair for Journalism and Mass Communications, that currently was previously vacant for a little while. So we are excited to have Amy Crawford on board. She started this fall. She was approved last semester as the Endowed Chair and has already been doing great work and bringing a lot of opportunities for our students. And we just hosted an event recently. I don't believe this made it into the report because this was from the past, and this just happened in November. But did a women's basketball panelists, a panel discussion, and it was perfect timing given the circumstances. So already seeing great things there as well, and look forward to continuing to provide the experiences to our students.
Thank you. Any comments? Provost Costello, thank you very much for
Thank you.
your presentations today. We now travel to the community college. Provost Heineck.
Regent Bloom. So for
Good morning.
updates, good morning. For
Please go
updates
ahead.
from, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little
just
bit
making
louder
sure.
if you can?
Sure. Can you hear me? So
Yeah,
for
you can-
updates
you
from
can turn up your volume just a little bit, please. Thank you, Karen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Yes,
Thank
better,
you.
yeah.
So for updates from CT State, we're very excited to announce that 1,247 students will be graduating this fall from CT State. They will be participating in our May commencement activities. On November 20th, the practical nursing program, which this board approved earlier this fall, went forward through the Board of Examiners for Nursing with their feasibility study, and I'm proud to announce that their feasibility study was unanimously accepted and noted for its high quality. So the program will begin in the summer of 2024. Beginning in November, the college has begun to sponsor college-wide scheduling summits, similar to Provost Hegedus. In Western, CT State is beginning our launch of CourseLeaf, a new software product, but we are bringing our faculty together by discipline. 35 different meetings are taking place between November and December to collaboratively plan college-wide our scheduling for fall of 25. On January 23rd, we will be launching an ACME Institute with our faculty, where we are going to be reporting our results of the co-requisite program and seeking their input and dialogue on any potential modifications or recommendations that we should be bringing forward to the board. I'm proud to announce that this fall, CT State launched 5 dual enrollment summits, where 300 different participants participated from our K-12 partners to learn about how we will be working towards NACEP certification in the years ahead. In addition to that, we will be launching our AI Faculty Fellowship and Staff Fellowship this fall, and that will provide 36 different members an opportunity to learn more about AI. We also anticipate that coming in the February meeting, we will be working towards the board getting to see any modifications and new programs coming through for the liberal arts and science degrees. And today, I believe you'll be hearing about a program modification for general studies. And that's my update.
Okay, thank you. The item for consideration then is the modification for the general studies program, the Association of Associate Degree in Arts. Provost, do you want to begin?
Sure, I would love to.
You have your posse here too, I gather. Right?
I do. I have our faculty member, Professor Edge, who's here to speak about this exciting opportunity. But basically, it is an opportunity for us to modify the general studies degree, making sure that it's clear for students what their choices with specific courses are related to our arts, our social sciences, and our science curriculum. But I'd love for our Professor Edge to speak to this.
Thank you, Dr. Heineck. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to bring this change to general studies. To give a background, the general studies degree is traditionally a degree that is considered a terminal degree. It is mainly for students who are looking for a degree so that they can advance in their job. So say they want to be a fire chief, they've got to have a degree. It's also used for students who are transferring in many credits, maybe very old credits, older students who are seeking a degree for their own personal growth. It's also a degree that can be used for transfer, but that's an addendum to it. The main job of general studies is to provide an avenue for an associate's degree for anybody, no matter what their strange circumstances can be. When CT State was created and the new general studies degree was created, there was a bit of confusion about whether or not general studies was a transfer degree or not, because indeed people do use it to transfer, especially if they're transferring out of state or they're going to a very specific program. Then they need the flexibility of a general studies program in order to meet the requirements of this other program. Otherwise, CT State is committed to having the liberal arts and sciences degrees be our designated transfer degrees. So what we're doing for general studies is we're making sure that we're keeping the general studies degree the most flexible avenue towards degree completion that the community colleges can offer. And so we've made changes that take back some of the more specifics that were put in when we consolidated and make it more flexible for all students. So if you want some specifics on that, I can go through on some of those specifics. That we've done a few things, like a 2000 level requirement for a course was put in, and we've reversed that. We're saving that for liberal arts and sciences. We've made sure that students have 2 courses in the arts and humanities that are going to have some not only flexibility, but also variety. We want to make sure that in making the program flexible, we don't make it too general. We want students to be, I don't want to use the word forced, right? But forced to put their toes still in all different academic disciplines so that they can explore, if they're in that group, that they have to explore different disciplines. We've also taken out the philosophy elective that was put in. We've reserved that for liberal arts and sciences. That's always been in that. That's definitely a transfer program. We've also opened up what we had as the option for a computer elective. It had been very, very specific about software, just being able to use the computer in general. So what we've done is we've opened it up to allow for graphic design, other technical fields that have a computer component, that students can use those courses to meet their needs. It also helps those students who are going to be getting lifetime experiential credit for courses. Many students getting a general, I'm gonna say many, but a good number of students who are getting the general studies degree are able to use that life experience credit. And so by opening up something like the computer course, we give those students more opportunity and an easier avenue to degree completion. We've also changed the science. We had 2 science electives that were in the general studies. We've changed that to be a math or a science, again, to make it flexible for specifically where a student is coming from and where they're going to go. So those are the changes that we've made. I hope that I believe they'll do the job. It's going to reflect more of what the general studies programs were before the consolidation. And I think that it's going to really help us help the students meet their needs, also be able to deal with financial aid issues in terms of having all of their courses paid for by financial aid. So I'll take some questions if there are any questions on that.
Questions or comments from the regents? Regent James, you're muted.
I have a question and comment. General studies is under fire, as we all well know. And I think that as we make these changes, the clarity and the conciseness of the communication of what we have to be very sharp about these changes, because I can see everything we do moving towards a goal, but I also see the detractors. I can already anticipate, oh, you're loosening your standards because we're taking away some of the requirements that we put in. So my appeal is to really say, to work very closely in terms of how you articulate and communicate the expected outcomes and the benefits of this in a way that's easily understood by people who are not necessarily as close to the academic community as, the people on this committee are.
Absolutely. And I didn't speak to that before, but one of the main things that was most important to us, for those of us who worked on this for the past year, is that we have changed the description of the program. It used to be at the bottom of the description was a small statement that says, this isn't the best transfer degree. You should work with, go to LAS if you're going to do that. We've now put it at the top. We've made it absolutely clear that when you start to read the description, that this degree is not meant for transfer. If you are interested in transfer, you need to do the liberal arts and sciences degree. So that was exactly our concern as well, is to make sure that we were not going to somehow harm students. I will say that the new program fits almost exactly the program that I've had at Norwalk for the past 30 years. It's worked very well. I think having guided pathways and advisors has been very helpful, getting students to move away from general studies who should not be in general studies, who should definitely be in liberal arts. And I know that CT State is working on a new program that I believe will go into effect in the fall, in which that is literally going to be the default. Liberal arts and sciences will be the default degree, and students will have to change their major to general studies. So I think that on a local level and at the statewide level, we are working very hard to avoid that specific problem, because we do not want students harmed by going into general studies when they should have been in liberal arts. So I think we've addressed that as best we can.
Thank you.
I just
Dr. Donovan,
want to.
I'm sorry, Regent Porth, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Just want to follow up Regent James' comments and the response by saying it's good to hear that people are considering all of the challenges related to this. But I personally think that the general studies work and related work is a crucial part of our access commitment. And I think I take today's report and the discussion with regard to Regent James's question and comment. I take that as a sign that we really are trying to work on I think a key component of access to CSCU and to higher education generally. I think that's crucial. Just want to say that.
Thank you. I agree. And having been the LAS and General Studies advisor and coordinator for the past 12 years, I have to say that it is one of the most heartwarming parts of my job is to see people come back and have access to having a degree because of our General Studies program. That to me has just been so rewarding to see that happen.
I agree. Thank you.
What happens if I've gone through the general studies degree and 5 years from now I decide I need to go to get a baccalaureate and I want to go to Central or Eastern? What happens to the courses? Can they slide over, or do we
I have great news for you. We have, right, because we're part of one system, when a student gets the degree from one of the community colleges, they transfer into all 4 of our state universities as a rising junior.
Okay.
With the 60
That's
credits.
the most,
Yeah.
all of those credits. That's the best thing about having put everything together, is that we know that even if some of these courses wouldn't transfer to UConn, won't go to Sacred Heart or the other places my students go to, I feel confident that when my students get that general studies degree, they can complete a 4-year degree along with anyone else because they're going to stay in our system. Okay. And even for Southern, we have the LEP agreement that they've even raised, and they've met all of the liberal education requirements as well. So we're in a really strong place with that we're continuing that access to a baccalaureate degree through the General Studies Associate's degree.
Dr. Diamond, you look like you wanted to say something before. No. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor of the proposal for the modification to the Associate in Arts to be approved?
Aye.
Regent James? Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried. The program will be recommended to the full board at its next meeting. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Do any comment about the below threshold tech studies, industrial technology from
It's a
the
minor,
provost or anybody else?
it's a minor below threshold request. It's a
Okay.
removal of a particular class because the math prerequisite is higher than the prerequisite for the program. So that is being made.
Okay. Okay, let me ask this question. Based on the last two discussion, is there a problem with math for many of the students, and are we doing anything to address this?
I don't think there's a problem with math for this particular program. It's the math level is math 2600, which is a calculus level class, which the program doesn't require. But do we have math issues? Naturally, I think that's part of the conversation that I hope to bring back to the board related to ACME. So I will have a full report on our adjustments with ACME.
Okay, I think that would be very, very useful, I think, for the committee.
That's
Thank
why
you
we're
very
having
much.
that institute on the 23rd of January with our faculty, because their input needs to be heard.
Very good, great, thank you. Okay, Charter Oak State College, Provost Ferreira.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and good to be here with my colleagues as well over here in Boston. So just a couple quick updates, because obviously you see a lot of our updates are in the agenda. We're very pleased to report that our final term 2, because our census comes in late due to having 2 terms in the fall semester. So our census has been completed. We are up 13.9% in headcount compared to this time last year. Our FTE is up 15.8%. We were also up 2 years ago, so we're about 30% up in FTE compared to 2 years ago. So we're on a very good trajectory. Our registered students actually surpassed 2,000. So we're very proud of that and the hard work that our folks have been doing from marketing, admissions, advising, all the way through. The other thing is actually here in Boston, actually with Dr. Diamond, actually we had a really great presentation on our work that we're doing at Charter Oak in collaboration with our system office on AI. It was actually a packed room, over 200 attendees. In fact, they were bringing in chairs into the ballroom as we were going through. So we were very proud and got great feedback, about how Connecticut is really being a leader in this work. In fact, I was having breakfast this morning with a president from a university in Morocco and wants us to kind of go ahead and do a webinar. So good feedback there. So kudos to Dr. Diamond. She was a great partner in this work. A couple of updates I think kind of transition over into the programs that are over on the agenda, and to give some overall points here. So we do collect student feedback, on our with our programs via course surveys and also graduation surveys as well. And we also do ad hoc surveys for certain topics. For example, this week we've actually sent out our survey on the inclusive access initiative that we undertook with the bookstore. So we'll have that data prepared later on this month to see how, when we rolled out this inclusive access, where we just charged a per credit fee for course materials, how well students are pleased or not pleased, or areas for improvement with that initiative. So we do collect that type of data both in the classroom, at the end with graduation, and then when we do certain initiatives, we want to make sure we capture the student voice in all those things. In addition, I do meet with our Student Government Association on a monthly basis, where they're part of our governance process to bring forward any problems or issues that we need to do. For example, our student government came to us a few years ago talking about our differential between our out-of-state and in-state rate and how that could potentially negatively impact the students who may be out of state and want to attend Charter Oak. And so because of that feedback, we actually flattened our out-of-state and in-state tuition rate, a lot of it based upon the student voice. When it comes into our programs itself, as far as there's a lot of talk about retention and graduation rates, our credit earned rate is actually 90%. So that means out of all the students who attempt courses, about 90% of them actually obtain a grade good enough to actually earn credit. Our institutional profile was also updated last week as we got the data in. Our graduation rate is at 56%, which for an online institution is actually pretty good. If you take a look at the Southern New Hampshires and the Posts and things like that, they're probably in the 20s and 30s. We're over in about the 56 range. We'd like to try to get up to around the 60 range. Our overall retention rate is 74%. Again, for a online institution, it's good. When you'll find as like a regional public in about 80. So that's our goal, is try to get up a little bit higher to there. Things that we really pride ourselves on as well is that our default rate on student loans. Now, obviously, you can't have recent data because of the pause on the student loan repayment, but pre-pandemic, 1.2% was our default rate, which if you take a look at maybe sometimes our private competitors, their default rates are around 10%. I mean, our default rates are very, very low, even compared to a regional public. Our student satisfaction, when we do the graduation surveys, is actually 96% of our students are either satisfied or very satisfied with the quality of Charter Oak. Our median earnings 10 years out is $64,209, which I would say is actually very good, comparatively speaking. When we compare it to our peers in the online sector, we're the best, with the one exception. University of Maryland Global Campus has slightly higher because they're in the Delmarva region and it's a much more expensive area, so wages tend to be a little bit higher. But the change in earnings of our graduates, the first quarter after our students graduate, they earn on average about $10,823 more. So they get about a 23% raise directly after they graduate. 3 quarters after graduation, they're earning about $12,909 more, which is about a 27.5% increase in their wages. So as when we take a look at Charter Oak, as say our goals are, do our students retain? Do they graduate? Do they we want to make sure that they don't acquire too much debt, and that they earn enough, though, so if they do take out any loans, that they're able to actually pay those loans back, but also more importantly, that they're able to provide for their families with high median wages. So all those metrics, I think we're very proud of when we compare that overall, especially considering that 43% of our students are Pell students. So any increases in median wages, especially right after graduation, means a whole lot for our students. So that data was just updated last week, and it's something I think can help paint a profile of what our degree can do and the quality of the education that our students do receive. And last thing, I know there's a possible question, because we are a little bit unique in terms of our residency requirement. We are exempted from the residency requirement because of our credit aggregator history. In about 2010, we did institute a residency requirement of 6 credits, and it is a conversation actually we're having ongoing as an institution, and also conversations with NECHI, which is, as we are no longer really a credit aggregator and we're more of a online college that with the increase in number of programs as you see today, we are constantly reassessing it in collaboration with our regional accreditor. And so a lot of times, a lot of residency requirements are kind of program based upon our accreditation within that program. So like if we have to look at KHEM or AACSB or anything like that. So that's where we're kind of looking at some of the residency requirements and where they may vary based upon program by program, but we are taking a look at a global perspective about maybe reassessing that residency requirement as well.
we don't have a Charter Oak across the board residency requirement.
Across the board, it's 6. That was implemented in 2010. So that's why each student is required to go through our cornerstone class, which is our first class that students take at Charter Oak, and then also every student is required to do a capstone in every major. So that is the minimum residency requirement for each of the programs across the board. But we are starting to take a look at. Sometimes we have higher residency requirements program by program, depending on a number of different factors, such as program accreditation. But we are reassessing, that number as we move away from that credit aggregator component into more of a we call traditional online college. That is something we have to start to maybe start to pivot on, and those are conversations that are ongoing with our accreditor.
So just to pursue, if I take the 2 courses that I can take all my other courses somewhere else and get a Charter Oak degree?
Correct. Before 2010, we actually had a 0 credit residency requirement where what we did was literally aggregate credits from, they would take courses at other universities, other colleges, their credit for prior learning, and we just aggregated it and awarded degrees. That was the history of Charter Oak from 1973, all the way up through the early 2000s. What did notice that sometimes students were graduating with our diploma, with our name on a degree, and we didn't really feel that we could really do that anymore, and with at least coming in with at least a minimum number of credits, at least from the beginning, and also being able to assess them at the end. So that's why in 2010 they implemented that 6 credit residency requirement. So we do have, for the most part, though, I'll say that, and this is why we're starting to reassess this. The average amount of credits that a student would transfer in, I'll give an example. Back in 2004, on average, we were transferring in about 96 credits. And an average age of our student was 43. Today, the average amount of transfer credits at Charter Oak is about 70, and our average age of our student is 36. So as our students become younger and start to transfer in less and less credits because they're taking more and more courses here at Charter Oak, that's the data points where we're starting to say maybe we should start to re-examine that component. Right now, I think for the most part, a lot of those that do remain that kind of utilize just a minimum residency requirement. We have a long-standing agreement with a program called BOR. BOR is it's a program for Orthodox Jewish women who actually come to us, and they have some credits that they come with us. They also go to Israel for over a year. We have done a credit for prior learning review of those credits, and they tend to have a high amount of credits that's awarded there, and then they take the 6 minimum over here at Charter Oak, and they graduate. So that's, for the most part now, that's been the largest for that low residency requirement users of that just that low amount there. So that's why, again, we're looking to possibly look to reassess over the coming years, again, as our amount of transfer credits are lowered.
I can only speak for myself, and this is not obviously an official statement on behalf of the committee, but I find this somewhat concerning. And I think we should have further conversations about this.
Yeah, we're one of about 5 institutions nationwide that have that residency requirements. Us, Excelsior, Thomas Edison, and I can get the others. And when it comes to, in essence, having that grandfathered history of a credit aggregator and that residency requirement.
Yeah, and Excelsior, New York State enterprise. Okay. First program, thank you for the report. Curriculum and Instruction, Master of Science.
Thank you. And then I know I have my colleague, Dr. Maureen Hogan is here. I'll give just a brief introduction. So I think as I mentioned to this committee before, we utilize gray decision intelligence over the summer and working with our academic leadership in our cabinet to identify what are the programs that we should be bringing to market. And then in the master's, the one that kind of landed over here for the master's degree is a master's in curriculum instruction. And actually the data does show that it's actually the most popular program for new students for a master's in education area with that zip code. So we do know that there's a high student demand and for this program. So I'll turn on over to Dr. Hogan to speak about the program.
Good. Thank you, Dave. So as Dave just mentioned, we did work with Grade DI, and we found this to be a very popular program nationwide. We also looked in Connecticut to find out how many residents from our state wanted to or did earn this degree. And we had 66 just in the past year, but only 66 earned the degree within Connecticut. The others went to outside universities online. So we want to bring some of those people back to Connecticut. So we've had a really strong enrollment in our undergraduate in the past 5 to 7 years. Our students are asking for master's degree programs. And with this Master of Science in Curriculum and Instruction, it will develop leaders to serve as program directors and curriculum specialists within community-based early childhood programs. It will allow teachers to move their provisional license to they have to have a master's degree to move to the professional license. So this will allow them to do that. We will develop district level curriculum coordinators in multiple areas within the sector. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for educators to have career growth, and we know that's something that they want. And finally, it's going to allow Connecticut residents to earn the degree within an online university within Connecticut instead of needing to go outside the state. So that's just a general synopsis of everything, and we're open to questions.
Questions, comments? If there, and this has been approved by the Provost Council, I take it?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Regent
Okay.
Porth, you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm sorry. Regent Porth?
You're muted.
I don't have any question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There are no questions or further comments. A motion to approve the new program curriculum and instruction Master of Science degree.
So moved. Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Program is approved to move forward to the full board at its next meeting. I'm sorry. Next program is the program in data analytics. Data analytics master, Bachelor of Science.
All right, thank you. So with in looking at our program as well, our program offerings, one of the things that in working with Great Decision Intelligence is looking at up and coming programs, and data analytics obviously is one of the fastest growing programs over in the country. Also, as we look at our menu of programs that we do offer here at Charter Oak, there really isn't anything that we had that was quantitatively focused. And so this will give that type of program option to students who are coming to us who may be quantitatively inclined. And so one thing I'll kind of mention about this program, and then I'll turn on over to my colleague, Joe Grodecki, is we are a Coursera Career Academy partner. There's actually two of us in the state of Connecticut, us and Albertus Magnus, but so we'll be utilizing some of that curriculum as kind of like our textbook and software in some of the courses, like with Google Data Analytics. And we recently made a transfer deal with Community College of Vermont, and they just built an online data analytics program. They too are also a Coursera Career Academy partner using the Coursera material is kind of like a textbook in software. And so we're actually looking at forming a 2+2 agreement with them because not only did we make a deal on a transfer piece, but also we're using curriculum that's actually very similar, so it'll help with the transfer process in the articulation of courses. So so we're really excited to kind of have this type of industry-driven curriculum built in as we do build in these courses. So, but with that, I'll turn on over to Joe Grodecki and present over on the curriculum.
Thanks, Dave. So the nice thing about this degree is it does kind of go hand in hand with our current software development degree, as well as you'll see lower in the below thresholds an AI practitioner. So there is an overlap. So a student coming in that, let's say, starts with our AI practitioner, wants to get an idea what AI is. We already had that conversation about AI. They have two options. They can go into data analytics, where we live in a data-driven world, right? So we're getting more and more and more data. All of our decisions are being made or should be made with data. And we had that conversation earlier as well about on the weather side. So it's really important that we provide an avenue for those folks that, one, hey, I'm interested in the data side. I kind of want to get involved with Python and R and those languages and the visualization software dealing with big data, or on our software development side where they can actually do the programming side. So this degree gives them the ability to work with raw data and be part of that decision-making process. It will have a large AI component to it because, as we've had that conversation as well, AI is the up-and-coming technology at the moment that doesn't look like it's going to turn back anytime soon.
And also, sorry, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to note that there are a lot of overlap between the various programs. So a percentage of this degree is already created because we will use some of the courses that we created in our software development degree as well.
And also this program will lead to not only the Google Data Analytics micro-credential, but then also Microsoft Power BI. It prepares them for the Microsoft Power BI exam because we were looking at either Microsoft Power BI or Tableau, which one to kind of go with. And what we actually found in conversations with business and industry is moving more into the Microsoft Power BI, in particular over in the healthcare industry.
And I gather from the reading that there are embedded certificates in the program as well.
Yeah, about 3/4 of the AI practitioner certificate could be stacked into this degree. It is stacked into this degree. As I mentioned, Google Data Analytics micro credential from Coursera is built in addition to the Microsoft Power BI and the preparation for that exam. And did I miss any others that are on that list?
No, you got them.
Okay.
Questions or comments from the regents? No. Okay. If I read the material correctly, just to go back to the hobby horse I was beating a few minutes ago, the residency requirement is 12 credits out of the 48 credits required for the program.
Yeah, within the major that they have to at least complete 12 of the credits in the major over at Charter Oak.
At Charter Oak. And they can transfer in the other 36, presumably? Yeah,
they can transfer upwards into it. Now, it would probably be very rare. And again, it's something that we're continuing to reassess. In fact, actually having conversations with our folks from NETCHI about that in collaboration with our obviously local governance as well, because there's been that history of aggregation. And also, as I said, the competition with Excelsior and things like that, we have to take into account.
Any other questions or comments? Motion to approve this program?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved to move this forward to the board, the full Board of Regents. Bachelor of Science in Marketing.
Okay. All right. So with this program, as we went into our retreat looking at new programs, So we have one in the master's degree, one up and coming that's quantitatively inclined, and then this program is one of the programs that is a very much popular bread and butter program that Charter Oak has not offered yet. And so obviously with this one is very high student demand, also very high competition. So there's the cost to market the program is going to be a little bit higher. And so that's something that we have factored into. But this is, one of those programs that as an online institution, we definitely should make sure that we do have to capture, that option for students, within the state and in the region. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Tom Barron to talk about the curriculum.
Thank you, Dave. As Dave was mentioning, this is a very high demand program. The foundation of the program is based on a common business core across all the different business degree programs that we have. And there are also several common major requirements going across all the various business degree programs. This particular marketing degree program is going to have a very strong digital marketing, social media marketing, and artificial intelligence influence within the program. The students, when they end up graduating from the program, have the opportunity to earn 3 professional certificates, one from Google, one from Meta, and ultimately one from Salesforce. Because of the commonality of the base across our various business degree programs, what will end up happening is
workforce issues is pay and pay equity. Our students are not staying in
Maureen,
the field.
can you mute, please?
Early childhood is going to be bereft soon because we're losing students to earn.
Maureen.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. So ultimately, because of the commonality across our business programs, we really only have an incremental investment in this program. Of course, in additional to marketing is the development of 9 courses in the program. From a residency requirement standpoint, we only require the 6 credits, and that's common across all our business courses. And when we seek future accreditation from the IECBE, there are no additional requirements by the IECBE to increase our residence requirements on that end. So I think that makes us very attractive, especially for students who have earned a substantial number of credits from ultimately from other programs. So with that, be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments from the regents? Okay. I have one question. One of the learning outcomes that you discuss on page 8 of your proposal, or page 136 of our package, is including political, social, and multicultural sensitivities. In looking at the courses that are required, I'm not sure where that comes from.
Okay. When you end up looking at learning outcomes number 3 and 4, basically when you end up looking at our business core and also our major requirements, there are 4 courses that the students will take that end up addressing those learning outcomes. First course is our international business course. The second course is our business ethics and individual values course. The third course is managing diversity in the workplace. And the fourth course is our business law course. Now, those are what I'll call the foundational courses within those particular areas. Of course, when you end up getting into the individual courses, when you're talking about various practices in the workplace, in terms of like ethics related to social media marketing, use of artificial intelligence, those will be addressed specifically within those courses.
Okay. Because I think that's returning to be an important issue about corporate responsibility.
Absolutely.
Any further comments about the marketing, Bachelor of Science in Marketing from the regents? No further comments. May I have a motion to approve the the program, Bachelor of Science in Marketing, recommending to the full Board of Regents.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it. Second.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried. The program will be recommended to the full board at its next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Modification. Thank you. Thank you. Provost Ferreira, the modifications, I don't know if you want to take them as a package. They're related to health administration and
I can definitely take it, and I'll turn it on over to my colleagues also to make any brief comments. But for the health informatics program, this is an area where as we looked at the data, the name health informatics, actually we've been kind of started to transition more into health data analytics. And so there's the name change accompanied with a couple of courses as far as the change there. We actually ran it by a number of our students actually in our HI program, and they're actually seeing that as well over in their area of work of a move a little bit more from informatics to data analytics. And the ones for healthcare administration is actually more of a semantic change, of the term from healthcare, the two words in one word, basically from the 1990s lingo over to the current 2024 lingo. But with that, I'll turn on over to my colleagues, Dr. Palke, and also Stacy Walraven for any comments as well.
Yeah, in addition to kind of an external request on why we have it as two words instead of one, our students were getting a little confused about how they use the credential when they write it within their title, if they could still use the MHA. So I think it's very appropriate to change it to the current times. And as far as the health informatics to health data analytics change in title, and the small changes that we have, we know that there's overlap between HI and healthcare data analytics. The focus on data analytics, we're doing minor modifications to move it away from the technology itself to using the technology to validate the data and enhance utilizing data to make the best decisions within healthcare. And of course, within those courses, we do plan to weave AI in terms of how it's being utilized in healthcare today. And as Joel had mentioned in the undergraduate data analytics program, I look at healthcare as kind of the epitome of big data. And so really preparing students to work with that data to help the executive team make the best decisions within the healthcare organizations and the health systems that we see today. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from the regents? I have one question. Could you tell us approximately how many students are in these three programs?
Within the healthcare administration and health
The
informatics?
first is the health and informatics Master of Science.
Yes, we run around 15 to 20 students. We're still fairly new in terms of the master's program. In the healthcare administration, we're more around 25 plus within the master's. And then in the undergraduate, Dave, do you have a better idea? I don't think Stacy is on the call.
Yep. Yeah, I believe in the health. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's
Stacy,
about
are you here?
180. No, this is Cindy. I think it's about 180.
180.
Thanks, Cindy.
There are no further questions, comments from the regents. We have to do these one by one because they're three separate programs. So motion to approve the modification, health informatics Master of Science.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
James. Okay, good. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Modification for the health informatics Master of Science is approved. We recommend it to the full board at its next meeting. Healthcare Administration Bachelor of Science. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried. And finally, 8C3, Healthcare Administration Master of Science name change. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All three all three items individually approved, 8C1, 8C2, and 8C3. Okay. Remainder are discontinuations. You want to say anything about the three discontinuations, Provost?
Okay. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Cindy Edgerton. Anything to comment on in regards to any of the ones there?
Yeah, not a lot of comments. It's really, the decision was really driven by low and sometimes no enrollment. And so in looking at that as a group, we kind of recommended which certificate programs would be, a likely consideration to discontinue. So you're seeing the list there.
Yeah, for 2 out of the 3, there wasn't any tied to any type of industry recognized certification, and so there really wasn't a seen value there. I think the health insurance customer service was more of a legacy with what was an industry partnership we had over a decade ago. The CDI one was just as a difficult time as far as trying to recruit nurses into something different, because if you try to tell a hospital that you'd like to recruit a nurse to do something different, they would probably want to throw you out. So that made it difficult for that enrollment recruitment piece.
Any comments or questions from the regions? Region James?
No comments, no questions.
Region Porth?
I have a quick comment. On these discontinuations, just in general, I favor the idea of adding more certificates and non-degree indications of progress and achievement in general. Again, in my opinion, related to access and workforce related issues. However, I do want to say this, that I appreciate every time we meet Charter Oak's effort to really look carefully at all the courses it offers and to revise or redesign its offerings based on student demand. And I think that's a model that's, to be honest, a little easier at Charter Oak, but something I hope we could do more of all across the system. And I want to say thank you for that. I think it's really important.
Yep. Thank you, Region Porth. The one thing I would say that actually is pretty interesting, we did actually get rid of about 3/4 of our certificates because a lot of them had like basically no enrollment. But the certificates that we did add and the certificates that we've modified to kind of be more in alignment with industry credentials, industry exams, our certificate our certificate enrollment was up like 50 students this year. Even though we lost 3/4 of our certificates, but we gained enrollment. In particular, our child development associate certificate, brought in, I believe, 40 students just in the first year. So I think it does show that the role of certificates, in particular, I think if we can show value to the students as part of a stackable component into our baccalaureate degree programs in particular, I think is a great model, or that I hope, definitely glad to work with any institution on.
Yeah, and can I just say, I really appreciate what you just said, and I respect that. And frankly, I am not qualified to make those kinds of decisions. And I, for one, rely on you and the experts to make those decisions. But I hope in general, we stay committed to the idea of access and progress that includes not only degree attainment, but certificates and stackable credits. I just think it's a crucial part of our mission, and also will respond more effectively to some of the state's workforce needs. So I really do appreciate the process you go through in making these decisions. Thank you.
There
I
is-
actually echo and support. I support that. I'm sorry, I had to get off the video. It's Juanita. But there is much more of a demand for backable credentials so that we can put more students on the career pathways initiatives that are coming out of many of our institutions.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I think also there's an interesting comment about the debriefing exercise on page 162 about why these programs didn't succeed. And some of it has to do with at the beginning of looking at the potential, having a tool to look at the potential enrollment and demand for these programs. So I think that's a lesson for all of us to think about. Okay. Discontinuations, D1, clinical documentation improvement certificate. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Second.
Aye.
Noted.
Aye.
D2, health insurance customer service, undergraduate certificate, discontinuation. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And finally, the D3, leadership and healthcare administration undergraduate certificate. Motion to discontinue.
I'll move that.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motions are carried for discontinuation of those three programs individually. You have a group of below threshold items dealing with the software development. Do you want to say anything about any of these? Do not require approval, but do you want to say anything about them and how they fit into?
Yeah, I think for just a few of them, one, obviously with software development, as Joe mentioned, this is about stacking the AI practitioner certificate into the software development program, because obviously software developers are going to need to have that level of AI knowledge in order to actually get a job. And so we wanted to make sure we're being responsive to the industry demands. That AI practitioner certificate is the new certificate. We have actually partnered with Intel. They've actually been very gracious with some curriculum to assist and so will help us with that development process. With the health information management, one thing I did want to kind of note from on an edit side that'll be coming through is we put in something like English 102, but we didn't want to pigeonhole and say that's the only course. So we're going to be sending just a correction to that language. It will be about our Gen Ed written Com2 as opposed to saying English 102. I'll defer to my colleagues as well if anything I may have missed in regards to the HIM component on that below threshold.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the regents? There's no approval is required here. Thank you, Dr. Farrar. Very informative, again, presentation. We appreciate it. And as was said, some interesting work going on at Charter Oak. So this is great. There is no further business. I'm requesting, if there's no good and welfare from among the regents' comments, I request what is usually the most popular motion of the day. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you all very much for your participation. And if we don't run into each other, I wish everybody a very enjoyable holiday season. And
Thanks,
look
everybody.
forward.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Your live stream is stopped, as well as your